The massive doors of the Galactic Senate chamber opened with a deep rumbling sound that echoed through the vast space. Admiral Kim De-ho walked through them with steady steps, his blue uniform crisp and clean against the strange colors of the alien architecture around him. The chamber was huge, bigger than any building on Earth, with floating platforms that held delegates from across the galaxy. Kim De-ho had been Earth's voice in this place for 3 years now. He had learned to read the body language of dozens of different species. Today, something was different. The usual chatter and movement was gone. Instead, there was a heavy silence that made his skin crawl. High Counselor Zixthan of the Valthari stood at the center podium. The crystalline being was 12 feet tall, with sharp edges that caught the light and threw it back in rainbow patterns. When Zixthan spoke, his voice sounded like glass breaking in slow motion. "The Galactic Senate calls this emergency session to order," Zixthan announced. "We gather today to address a growing concern that threatens the peace and stability of our civilized galaxy." Kim De-ho felt his stomach tighten. Emergency sessions were rare. In his 3 years here, there had been only 2 others. Both had ended badly for someone. Around the chamber, delegates from over 200 species watched from their floating platforms. The gas-dwelling Morthek floated in their containment suits, their tentacles moving in patterns that Kim De-ho had learned meant excitement. The insect-like Kretar clicked their mandibles in what he knew was anticipation. Even the peaceful Ulanari, who usually spent these sessions sleeping, were fully alert. All eyes were on the human delegation platform. Kim De-ho stood alone, as he always did. Earth had been granted only 1 representative, while species like the Valthari had 50. "Honored delegates," Zixthan continued, "we have discovered that one member species has been secretly developing weapons technology far beyond their declared capabilities. This species has been hiding their true military strength while accepting our protection and guidance." The chamber erupted in sounds. Clicks, hisses, electronic beeps, and stranger noises filled the air. Kim De-ho knew they were talking about humanity, but he kept his face calm. His military training had taught him never to give away his thoughts to an enemy. "The species known as humanity," Zixthan said, and the chamber fell silent again, "has been lying to the Senate for decades. They claim to have only 200 military vessels. Our intelligence suggests the real number is much higher." Kim De-ho almost smiled. If their intelligence was that bad, humanity was in better shape than he had thought. A new voice spoke from across the chamber. General Gulver of the Morthek floated forward in his containment suit. The gas dweller's tentacles moved in aggressive patterns as he spoke through his translator. "The Morthek have long suspected human deception," Gulver said. "They are a violent species that has spent their entire history in warfare. They cannot be trusted with advanced technology." More voices joined in. The Kretar representative clicked rapidly, which Kim De-ho knew meant agreement. The Ulanari, despite their peaceful nature, seemed to nod their large heads in approval. Kim De-ho waited. This was clearly planned. They had prepared their arguments and gathered their support before calling this session. That meant they were serious about whatever they were planning to do. Zixthan raised one crystalline arm, and the chamber fell silent again. "The Galactic Senate has reached a decision. All member species must now surrender their military capabilities to Senate oversight. This is not a request. This is a requirement for continued membership in galactic civilization." The words hit Kim De-ho like a physical blow. They wanted humanity to disarm completely, to give up their ability to defend themselves and trust in the protection of species that clearly feared and distrusted them. Furthermore, Zixthan continued, "the species known as humanity will be the first to comply with this new regulation. They have 1 rotation of their home star to surrender all military vessels, weapons, and defensive systems to Senate control." Kim De-ho felt the weight of 200 species watching him. Some looked curious, others looked satisfied, and a few looked almost sorry for him. He took a deep breath and activated his communication device. "Honored Counselor," he said, his voice carrying clearly through the chamber's speakers, "Earth's government will need time to consider this decision. Such a major change in policy requires careful thought and discussion." Zixthan's crystalline form seemed to grow brighter. "There is nothing to consider, human. The decision has been made. Comply or face the consequences." "And what consequences would those be?" Kim Dae-ho asked, though he suspected he already knew. The chamber's main display screen activated, showing images that made Kim Dae-ho's blood run cold. Ship after ship appeared on the screen. Thousands of them, from dozens of different species. The combined military might of the galaxy, all pointed toward one small blue planet. The combined fleets of the Galactic Senate are already in position. Gulliver announced with what sounded like satisfaction. Over 10,000 vessels from 47 species. Should humanity choose to refuse our generous offer of protection, they will discover why no species has ever successfully opposed the will of the Senate. Kim Dae-ho studied the display. The alien fleets were massive, their ships gleaming with advanced technology that humanity could barely understand. Weapons that could crack planets, shields that could deflect stars, and engines that could cross the galaxy in days. Against this force, humanity had exactly 200 ships. Old ships, built with technology that the aliens considered primitive. Ships that had never been tested in real combat against enemies this advanced. The math was simple. 10,000 against 200, 50 to 1 odds. No military commander in human history had ever won against odds like that. "I understand the Senate's position," Kim Dae-ho said carefully. "However, Earth's government will still require time to respond properly to such an important decision. We request 7 days to give you our answer." The chamber erupted again. Some delegates seemed angry at the delay. Others appeared amused by human stubbornness. A few seemed impressed that humanity was asking for time, instead of surrendering immediately. Zixthan consulted with several other Velthari delegates, their crystalline forms flashing with colors that Kim Dae-ho knew meant they were communicating in their light language. Finally, the High Counselor turned back to the human representative. 7 days, Zixthan agreed. "But understand this, human. The Senate's patience has limits. At the end of 7 days, we will have your answer. And if that answer is not compliance, the consequences will be immediate and final." Kim Dae-ho bowed formally. "Earth thanks the Senate for its consideration. We will not waste this time." As the session ended and the delegates began to disperse, Kim Dae-ho remained on his platform. He watched the alien representatives leave, noting which ones looked pleased and which ones looked worried. The Velthari and Morthek were clearly confident. The Kretar seemed excited by the prospect of violence. But some of the smaller species looked uncertain. When the chamber was nearly empty, Kim Dae-ho finally activated his secure communication link to Earth. The message would take several minutes to reach home, but it would get there. "This is Admiral Kim Dae-ho to Earth Command. The Senate has issued an ultimatum. They want complete disarmament within 7 days, backed by a fleet of over 10,000 ships. Request immediate conference with the President and the Global Defense Council." He paused, looking around the empty chamber one more time. "Also, please advise President Park that it might be time to implement the Pandora Protocols. The Senate seems to think they know what they're dealing with. I think it's time we showed them how wrong they are." The communication ended, and Kim Dae-ho made his way back to his quarters. 7 days. 7 days to decide the fate of humanity. 7 days for the galaxy to learn whether they had made the biggest mistake in their history. Outside his window, he could see the alien fleet gathering. In the distance, thousands of ships, their weapons trained on Earth. They looked powerful and confident. Kim Dae-ho smiled for the first time since entering the Senate chamber. If only they knew what was waiting for them back home. The emergency alarm echoed through the halls of the Global Defense Council building in Geneva. President Park Tae-min walked quickly through the corridors, his security team struggling to keep up with his long strides. The message from Admiral Kim Dae-ho had arrived 30 minutes ago, and every second counted now. The main conference room was already full when President Park arrived. General Choi Bung-soo stood at the head of the table, his weathered face grim as he studied the holographic display showing the alien fleet positions. Around the table sat the most important military and scientific minds on Earth. "Report, President," Park said as he took his seat. General Choi activated the main display. "The alien fleet is positioned at the edge of our solar system. Current count is 10,400 ships from 47 different species. They're maintaining what they think is a safe distance." Dr. Shin the Jin, the head of Earth's Theoretical Weapons Division, stood up from her chair. She was a small woman with sharp eyes that missed nothing. Her hands shook slightly as she accessed her classified files. "Mr. President," she said, "it's time we discussed the Pandora project." The room fell silent. Even among this group of highly cleared officials, only a few knew about Pandora. President Park nodded slowly. "Show them," he said. Dr. Shin activated a new holographic display. The room filled with images of weapons and technologies that made several of the generals lean back in their chairs. Space-based platforms that could accelerate matter to near light speed. Quantum manipulation devices that could phase objects through solid matter. Nanite swarms that could disassemble targets at the molecular level. For the past 50 years, Dr. Shin explained, humanity has been preparing for exactly this situation. The Pandora project was created under one simple assumption. Someday, someone would try to make us defenseless. She moved to the next display, showing a cross-section of Earth's moon. What appeared to be a solid rock was actually honeycombed with hidden installations. The moon contains 47 launch bays, each one capable of housing a full battle group. The asteroids we've been mining aren't just sources of raw materials. They're weapons platforms disguised as civilian operations. Admiral Lee Hanna, who had been silent until now, spoke up. "How many ships are we actually talking about, Doctor?" Dr. Shin smiled for the first time since the meeting began. "The aliens think we have 200 ships. The real number is closer to 50,000. The room erupted in surprised voices. Even President Park looked shocked. General Choi held up his hand for silence. 50,000? He asked, "How is that possible?" "We've been building them in secret for decades," Dr. Shin replied. "Every civilian shipyard, every mining operation, every research station has been contributing. The ships exist, but they're hidden throughout the solar system." She changed the display again, showing the solar system from above. Red dots appeared everywhere. Around Jupiter's moons, in the asteroid belt, even in the outer reaches. Near Pluto, each dot represented a hidden facility. "The aliens are used to fighting conventional warfare," Dr. Shin continued. "They meet in open space, form battle lines, and exchange fire until one side wins. They have no experience with an enemy that treats the entire solar system as a fortress." Commander Kang Min-ho, who had been reviewing tactical displays on his personal tablet, looked up. "Doctor, what about the new weapons systems? The ones from the Black Projects division?" Dr. Shin hesitated, then nodded. "Show them Protocol 7, she said to her assistant. The display changed to show a weapon that looked like a simple metal rod, kinetic impactors, Dr. Shin explained. "We accelerate them to 90% of light speed using our gravity manipulators. At that velocity, a piece of metal the size of a pencil can destroy a capital ship." General Choi whistled softly. "What about their shields?" "The impactors phase through conventional shielding. The aliens' defensive technology is designed to stop energy weapons and slow-moving projectiles." They've never encountered anything like this. President Park stood up and walked to the window. Outside, he could see the lights of the city completely normal despite the fleet of alien warships at the edge of the solar system. The citizens didn't know how close they were to either salvation or destruction. "How long to activate all systems?" he asked. "The weapon platforms are already online," Commander Kang replied. "We've been running them as mining operations and research stations for years. It would take about 6 hours to fully prepare for combat operations." "And our ship commanders?" Admiral Lee Hanna answered this time. "Captain Yoon Jae-won of the Retribution is already in position near Mars. Captain Song Eun-bai has the Defiance hidden in the asteroid belt. Captain Nam Woo-jin is keeping the Vengeance in Jupiter's shadow. All of our battle group commanders are ready." President Park turned back to the group. "What are our chances?" Dr. Shin looked at her data one more time. "In conventional warfare, we would lose. 10,000 ships against our visible fleet of 200 would be a massacre. But this won't be conventional warfare." She activated a simulation on the main display. It showed the alien fleet approaching Earth, confident and organized. Then it showed what would happen when humanity's true capabilities were revealed. "The aliens are expecting us to meet them in open space for a traditional battle. Instead, they'll find themselves in a kill zone that extends from the outer planets to Earth itself. Every asteroid, every moon, every piece of space debris could potentially be a weapon." General Choi studied the simulation. "What about casualties on our side? If we do this right, minimal. The aliens don't know our real capabilities, so they won't be prepared for our actual tactics. By the time they realize what's happening, it will be too late." President Park sat back down and looked around the table. These people represented humanity's best hope for survival. They were asking him to trust in technologies that sounded like science fiction and tactics that had never been tested in real combat. "There's one more thing," Dr. Shin said quietly. "The temporal displacement weapons." Even General Choi looked surprised at this. "I thought those were still theoretical." They were. Until last month. We've successfully tested the ability to freeze objects in time for short periods. A ship caught in the temporal displacement field becomes completely helpless. They can't move, can't shoot, can't even think. President Park felt a chill run down his spine. How many people know about these capabilities? "Including everyone in this room, fewer than 50 people on Earth," Dr. Shin replied. "The alien intelligence networks have no idea what we're really capable of." Admiral Lee Hanna leaned forward. "Mr. President, there's something else we need to consider. If we reveal these weapons, we can never go back to being the harmless species the aliens think we are. This will change everything." President Park nodded slowly. He understood the implications. If humanity demonstrated these capabilities, they would no longer be the junior species begging for acceptance in galactic civilization. They would become something the aliens had never encountered before, a species that had chosen to appear weak while secretly becoming the most dangerous force in the galaxy. "How long before Admiral Kim needs our answer?" he asked. 6 days, General Choi replied. "But the alien fleet commanders are already positioning for attack. If we're going to do this, we need to start preparations now." President Park stood up again. Around the table, the most powerful people on Earth waited for his decision. Outside the window, normal life continued. People went to work, children played in parks, and nobody knew that the next few days would determine whether humanity remained free or became slaves to alien masters. "Begin activation of all Pandora protocols," President Park said finally. "Full military alert, but keep it quiet. I don't want panic in the civilian population." He turned to Dr. Shin. "Doctor, how long would it take to give the aliens a demonstration?" "They'll never forget." Dr. Shin smiled grimly. "Give me 12 hours, Mr. President. After that, They'll understand exactly what kind of species they've been underestimating. The meeting ended, and the participants scattered to their various commands. Within minutes, secret messages were being sent to hidden installations throughout the solar system. Asteroid mining platforms began revealing their true nature as weapons. Batteries. Moon bases that had been disguised as research stations started powering up their most dangerous systems. The aliens thought they knew what humanity was capable of. In less than a week, they would discover how wrong they had been. The seventh day had arrived. Admiral Kim Dae-ho stood in the center of the Galactic Senate chamber, but this time everything was different. His uniform was still the same blue, but now he wore the insignia of Earth's true military rank. His shoulders were straight, his eyes were calm, and his voice would soon carry words that would change the galaxy forever. The chamber was packed with more delegates than Kim Dae-ho had ever seen. Word had spread that the humans would give their final answer today. Some aliens had come to witness what they thought would be humanity's surrender. Others had come to watch the destruction of a species that dared to defy the Senate. High Counselor Zix then stood at his podium, his crystalline form glowing brighter than usual. The light patterns dancing across his surface told Kim Dae-ho that the Velthari leader was excited. General Golver floated nearby in his containment suit, his tentacles moving in patterns that meant anticipation and satisfaction. The time for discussion has ended, Zix then announced to the chamber. The species known as humanity will now provide their answer to the Senate's generous offer of protection. Kim Dae-ho activated his personal holographic projector and stepped forward. Honored delegates of the Galactic Senate, Earth's government has carefully considered your proposal. Before we give our answer, we would like to share some information that may be relevant to your decision. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. This was not what the aliens had expected. They had anticipated either immediate surrender or defiant. Words followed by swift destruction. You have asked us to surrender our military capabilities, Kim Dae-ho continued. But perhaps you should first understand what you are asking us to give up. The holographic display activated, filling the center of the chamber with images that made the alien delegates lean forward in their seats. The first image showed Earth's official fleet roster, 200 ships of various classes, all of them appearing old and outdated by galactic standards. This is what we have allowed you to see, Kim Dae-ho said calmly. 200 vessels, most of them converted civilian ships with basic weapons, not very impressive by your standards. General Gulver's tentacles moved in what Kim Dae-ho recognized as amusement. Several other delegates made sounds that indicated they were pleased with this confirmation of human weakness. However, Kim Dae-ho continued, and the display changed. This is what we actually possess. The new image showed the solar system from above, but now it was covered with red dots. Thousands of them, scattered from the outer planets all the way to Earth itself. Each dot pulsed with a soft light, indicating an active military installation. The chamber fell completely silent. 50,000 combat vessels, Kim Dae-ho announced, hidden throughout our solar system for the past 50 years. Every asteroid mining operation, every research station, every civilian installation has been part of our defensive network. The display zoomed in on Earth's moon, showing cross-sections of the hidden military bases carved into its surface. Then, it moved to show the massive weapons platforms disguised as asteroid mining equipment. Finally, it revealed the true nature of humanity's civilian space habitats. Zixthan's crystalline form flickered rapidly, the light patterns showing confusion and disbelief. This is impossible. Our intelligence networks would have detected such construction. Kim Dae-ho smiled for the first time since entering the chamber. Your intelligence networks detected exactly what we wanted them to detect. You see, we have spent the last century studying how your species think, how you gather information, and how you make decisions. We designed our deception specifically to fool you. The display changed again, showing technical specifications that made several alien delegates gasp in recognition. Kinetic weapons that could accelerate projectiles to near light speed. Energy systems that could phase through conventional shielding. Defensive networks that could coordinate the defense of an entire star system. These are not theoretical weapons, Kim Di-ho explained. They are operational and have been tested extensively. We simply chose not to use them while diplomacy remained possible. Dr. Shin the-jin's voice joined the presentation through the communication link, her words carrying clearly through the chamber's speakers. The Pandora project has been humanity's greatest achievement. We took the fundamental forces of physics and turned them into tools of war. The display showed a demonstration of the temporal displacement technology. An asteroid was caught in the field and simply stopped existing in normal time. It hung motionless in space, completely frozen, while everything around it continued to move. Temporal manipulation, Dr. Shin's voice continued. We can remove objects from the timeline itself. Ships caught in these fields become completely helpless. They cannot move, cannot fight, cannot even send distress signals. General Gulliver's tentacles had stopped moving entirely. The gas dweller floated motionless in his containment suit, apparently unable to process what he was seeing. The demonstration continued with footage of nanet swarms in action. Tiny machines, invisible to the naked eye, swarmed over a decommissioned ship and began breaking it down at the molecular level. Within minutes, the vessel was reduced to its component atoms. Molecular disassembly, Dr. Shin explained. These nanets can be programmed to target specific materials or energy signatures. An enemy fleet would simply cease to exist, converted into raw materials for our own use. Kim Di-ho watched the alien delegates as they absorbed this information. Some were clearly terrified. Others seemed angry at being deceived. A few appeared impressed despite themselves. But perhaps, Kim Di-ho said, you would prefer a more traditional demonstration. The display switched to show the current positions of the alien fleet at the edge of the solar system. The ships were arranged in perfect formation, their weapons trained on Earth, confident in their overwhelming numerical superiority. Your fleet consists of 10,400 ships, Kim Di-ho observed. Impressive by any standard. However, you have made one critical error in your positioning. Red targeting brackets appeared around groups of alien ships on the display. The brackets moved and shifted, showing how humanity's hidden weapons could engage multiple targets simultaneously. You positioned your fleet at what you believed was a safe distance from our primitive weapons. Unfortunately, you calculated that distance based on technology we discarded decades ago. The display zoomed out to show the effective range of humanity's actual weapons. The red zone of coverage extended far beyond the alien fleet's position. You are not outside our weapons range, Kim Di-ho said quietly. You are inside our target zone. Zix then finally found his voice. You dare to threaten the combined might of the galaxy? Even with these weapons, you are still outnumbered 10-1. Are we? Kim Di-ho asked. Let me show you something interesting about human military doctrine. The display changed to show a tactical analysis of the alien fleet. Ships were grouped by species, showing their different capabilities and weaknesses. Lines appeared between the groups, indicating communication delays and coordination problems. Your fleet represents 47 different species with 47 different military doctrines. Your ships use different communication protocols, different weapon systems, and different tactical approaches. You have never fought together as a unified force. Kim Di-ho paused to let this sink in. Our 50,000 ships, however, are all human. Same training, same doctrine, same instantaneous communication network. We do not have a fleet of 50,000 ships. We have one ship with 50,000 components. The chamber was so quiet that Kim Di-ho could hear the environmental systems cycling air through the vast space. Furthermore, he continued, your positioning assumes that we will meet you in open space for a traditional battle. This assumption is incorrect. The display showed the solar system again, but now it illustrated how humanity's defensive network could engage enemies from multiple directions simultaneously. Ships approaching Earth would face fire from weapons platforms on asteroids, from hidden bases on planets and moons, and from mobile fleets that could appear anywhere in the system. You came here to fight a species you believed was weak and primitive. Instead, you have positioned your fleet inside a trap that we have been building for 50 years. General Gulver finally spoke, his voice transmitted through his suit speakers. This is all very impressive, human. But you forget that we came here expecting some resistance. Our ships are prepared for battle. Kim Di-ho nodded respectfully. Of course, General. Your reputation as a military leader is well known throughout the galaxy. That is why we prepared something special for commanders of your caliber. The display switched to show real-time footage from the edge of the solar system. The alien fleet was clearly visible, their ships gleaming in the light of Earth's sun. They looked powerful and confident. This is happening right now, Kim Di-ho announced. Our demonstration will begin in 30 seconds. Panic erupted in the chamber as aliens realized they were about to witness an actual attack on their fleets. Communications devices activated as delegates tried to warn their military commanders. Please do not be alarmed, Kim Di-ho said calmly. This will be a very limited demonstration. We will disable exactly one ship from your fleet, nothing more. The countdown reached 0. On the display, a single pulse of light appeared from somewhere near Mars. It moved across the screen, almost too fast to follow, crossing the distance to the alien fleet in seconds. One ship, a Velfari heavy cruiser, simply vanished. Not destroyed, not damaged, but completely gone. Where it had been, there was now empty space. The chamber erupted. In shocked voices, delegates screamed questions and demands in dozens of languages. Several tried to contact their fleets, only to discover that the missing ship was not responding to any communications. The ship still exists, Kim Di-ho announced over the chaos. It has been displaced in time by approximately 1 minute. It will reappear shortly, completely undamaged but with a very confused crew. As he spoke, the ship flickered back into existence, exactly where it had been. The chamber fell silent again as the implications sank in. That was one weapon, with a very limited effect, fired at minimum power, Kim Di-ho explained. We have thousands of such weapons, and they can be configured for much more permanent effects. He looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of delegates from dozens of species. The Galactic Senate demanded that humanity disarm. Earth's response is simple: no. High Counselor Zixthan stood frozen at his podium, his crystalline form flickering with colors that Admiral Kim Di-ho had never seen before. The light patterns were chaotic, confused, almost panicked. Around the chamber, delegates from dozens of species sat in stunned silence, trying to process what they had just witnessed. General Gulver was the first to recover his voice. His tentacles moved in sharp, angry patterns as he spoke through his containment suit speakers. This is impossible. You cannot have hidden such capabilities for so long. Our intelligence networks are the best in the galaxy. Kim Di-ho remained calm at the center of the chamber. General, your intelligence networks are indeed excellent at gathering information about species that think like you do. Unfortunately for you, humans do not think like other species. The holographic display changed to show the alien fleet at the edge of the solar system. The ships were no longer in perfect formation. Several had moved out of position, their commanders clearly trying to understand what had just happened to the Velfari cruiser. Your fleet commanders are confused, Kim Di-ho observed. They cannot understand how we reached one of their ships across such a distance without any visible weapon discharge. They are trying to reposition to protect themselves from an attack. Method they do not comprehend. Zix then finally found his voice again. Human, you have shown us one weapon firing one shot. Even with your claimed 50,000 ships, you cannot defeat the combined might of 47 species. We have military doctrine refined over millions of years. Kim Dae-ho nodded respectfully. You are absolutely correct, Counselor. One weapon means nothing against such a force. That is why we prepared more than one weapon. The display switched to show Captain Yoon Jae-won on the bridge of his ship, the Retribution. The captain was a young man with steady eyes and hands that moved confidently over his control systems. His ship hung in space near Mars, completely invisible to the alien sensors. Captain Yoon, Kim Dae-ho said into his communicator, please demonstrate why we call your vessel the Retribution. Understood, Admiral, came the reply through the chamber's speakers. Firing kinetic impactor in 3 seconds. On the display, nothing visible happened for a moment. Then a streak of light appeared, moving so fast that it was barely a flash. Across the screen, the projectile crossed the distance from Mars to the alien fleet faster than most sensors could track. The impact was devastating. The kinetic impactor struck the center of the alien formation and exploded with the force of a small star. 50 ships vanished instantly, vaporized by the incredible energy release. The shockwave rippled outward, damaging hundreds more vessels. And sending the entire fleet into chaos. The chamber erupted in screams and angry shouts. Delegates jumped to their feet, some trying to contact their fleets while others demanded immediate explanation from the human. Representative Kim Dae-ho waited for the noise to die down before speaking. That projectile was a simple piece of metal, no larger than your finger, accelerated to 90% of light speed. At that velocity, mass becomes irrelevant. Physics itself becomes a weapon. General Gulliver's tentacles were moving frantically now. You have just committed an act of war against the entire galaxy. Our fleets will respond with overwhelming force. Will they? Kim Dae-ho asked mildly. Let us see. The display switched to show the alien fleet's response. Ships were indeed moving to attack positions, their weapons powering up for retaliation. But as they moved, red brackets appeared around groups of vessels, showing that they were being targeted by multiple hidden weapon systems. Your ships are brave, Kim Dae-ho acknowledged. But bravery cannot overcome poor positioning and inadequate intelligence. Captain Song Eun-bai's voice joined the communication link from her ship, the Defiance. Admiral, temporal displacement weapons are locked and ready. Shall I demonstrate why physics is not optional? Proceed, Captain, Kim Dae-ho replied. On the display, the advancing alien ships suddenly began to slow down. Not because their engines were failing, but because time itself was being manipulated around them. Ship after ship became trapped in temporal fields, frozen between seconds like insects in amber. The effect spread through the alien formation like a wave. Vessels that had been moving at combat speed found themselves unable to complete their maneuvers. Weapons that had been charging became locked in an endless moment of preparation. Communications that had been sending became trapped in transmission. Within minutes, over 2,000 alien ships were helpless, caught in temporal loops that prevented them from taking any action. Zixthen's crystalline form was now flickering, so rapidly that it hurt to look at him directly. Release our ships immediately. This is a violation of every law of civilized warfare. Kim Dae-ho tilted his head slightly. Counselor, you declared war on humanity when you brought 10,000 ships to threaten our home world. We are simply responding with superior tactics and technology. The demonstration continued. Captain Nam Woo-jin's ship, the Vengeance, appeared from behind Jupiter's largest moon. His vessel was different from the others, sleeker and more angular, with weapon ports that seemed to shimmer with contained energy. Admiral, came Nam Woo-jin's voice, nanite deployment systems are active. Shall I show them what molecular disassembly looks like on a large scale? "A small demonstration only, Captain," Kim Dae-ho replied. "We want to educate, not exterminate." Clouds of tiny machines erupted from the Vengeance, invisible to normal sensors, but clearly visible on the enhanced displays in the Senate chamber. The nanite swarms moved through space like living things, seeking out their programmed targets. They reached a group of Kretar, vessels that had been trying to flank the human positions. The insect-like alien ships were known for their thick armor and redundant systems. They were considered nearly indestructible by conventional weapons. The nanites swarmed over the Kretar, ships like metallic fog. Where they touched, the alien vessels began to dissolve. Not explode, not burn, but simply come apart at the molecular level. Hull plating separated into component atoms. Weapon systems unraveled into basic elements. Life support equipment decomposed into harmless gases. Within 10 minutes, the proud Kretar battle group had been reduced to clouds of raw materials floating in space. The aliens themselves had been safely transported to nearby vessels before the disassembly began, but their Kanla ships were gone as completely as if they had never existed. The chamber was now in complete chaos. Delegates were screaming in languages Kim Dae-ho did not recognize. Several had collapsed in what appeared to be shock. Others were frantically trying to contact their home worlds to warn them of humanity's true capabilities. Commander Kang Min-ho's voice joined the communication from his hidden base on Ceres. "Admiral, the asteroid belt weapon platforms are fully charged. Shall we demonstrate gravitational manipulation?" "A minor display, Commander," Kim Dae-ho agreed. The asteroids threw out. The belt began to move. Not randomly, but in perfect coordination, as if they were part of a vast machine. Rocks the size of cities shifted their orbits, aligning themselves to create clear firing lanes toward the alien fleet. But the real demonstration came when several asteroids simply vanished from their orbits and reappeared in the middle of the alien formation. The gravitational weapons had transported massive chunks of rock across millions of kilometers instantly, dropping them directly among the enemy ships. The alien fleet scattered in panic as mountain-sized asteroids appeared without warning in their midst. Ships collided with unexpected obstacles. Formations broke apart as captains tried to avoid the suddenly materialized rocks, and the entire attack force descended into chaos. Dr. Shin the Jin's voice came through the communication system one final time. "Admiral, all weapon systems are operating at peak efficiency. The demonstration has been successful. The alien fleet is no longer combat effective." Kim Dae-ho surveyed the chamber full of terrified alien delegates, then looked at the display showing the scattered, damaged, and demoralized fleet that had come to conquer Earth. "Honored delegates," he said in the same calm voice he had used throughout the presentation, "this concludes our educational demonstration. As you can see, humanity possesses certain advantages in the field of military technology." He paused to let this sink in, watching as the reality of the situation became clear to every alien in the chamber. "Your fleet came here with 10,000 ships, confident in your numerical superiority. You now have approximately 6,000 ships still capable of combat operations. We have not yet revealed our full capabilities, nor have we deployed our main battle fleet." General Gulliver floated, motionless in his containment suit, apparently unable to process the complete destruction of everything he thought he knew about warfare. "The question now," Kim Dae-ho continued, "is whether you would like us to continue this demonstration, or whether you are prepared to discuss new terms for our relationship with the Galactic Senate." The chamber fell silent except for the sound of alien delegates trying to contact their surviving ships. Outside, the once mighty galactic fleet hung in space, broken and confused, finally understanding that they had not come to conquer a primitive species. They had walked into the lair of the galaxy's apex predators. The Galactic Senate chamber had never been so quiet. Admiral Kim Dae-ho stood in the center of the vast space, surrounded by the shocked faces of delegates from across the galaxy. The holographic display still showed the broken remains of what had once been the most powerful fleet ever assembled. Ships drifted helplessly in space, their crews struggling to understand how their mighty armada had been reduced to scrap metal in less than an hour. High Counselor Zixthan's crystalline form had stopped flickering. The Velthari leader stood, motionless at his podium, his surface reflecting the light in dull, defeated patterns. General Gulliver floated in his containment suit like a deflated balloon, his tentacles hanging limp and still. Kim Dae-ho activated his communication device and spoke in the same calm voice he had used throughout the demonstration. The display of human military capabilities is now complete. We believe we have made our position clear regarding the Senate's demand for disarmament. A small alien delegate from the Ulanari species raised one of his forearms. His voice was barely audible when he spoke. "What do you want from us?" Kim Dae-ho smiled for the first time since the demonstration began. "An excellent question. Earth's position is simple. We reject the Senate's ultimatum completely. We will not disarm. We will not surrender our defensive capabilities, and we will not place our security in the hands of others." The chamber erupted in nervous whispers. Several delegates began speaking at once, their voices mixing into a chaos of different languages and communication methods. Kim Dae-ho raised his hand, and the chamber fell silent again. The gesture was simple, but every alien present had just seen what happened when humans decided to take action. However, Kim Dae-ho continued, "We are not unreasonable. We propose a new arrangement that will benefit everyone in this chamber." The main display changed to show a map of the galaxy. Human territories were marked in blue, currently limited to their single solar system. But now new zones appeared on the map, marked in different colors and labeled with various species names. "The Terran Peacekeeping Initiative," Kim Dae-ho announced. "Any species that requests our protection will receive it. Any species that threatens our allies will face the same demonstration you have just witnessed." President Park Tae-min's voice joined the presentation through the communication link from Earth. His words carried the authority of humanity's elected leader and the weight of their newly revealed power. "For too long, this galaxy has been ruled by fear," President Park said. "Strong species have dominated weak ones. Advanced civilizations have exploited primitive ones. Military might has determined political power. Today, that changes." The display showed footage from across the galaxy. Weak species hiding in fear from their powerful neighbors. Primitive civilizations being forced to surrender their resources to advanced empires. Military dictatorships crushing any opposition with overwhelming force. "Humanity offers an alternative," President Park continued. "We will use our military capabilities to protect those who cannot protect themselves. We will ensure that technological advancement comes through cooperation, not conquest. We will guarantee that no species will ever again face the choice between submission and destruction." General Gulliver finally found his voice, though it sounded weak and uncertain. "You speak of protection, but what you have shown us is the power to destroy entire civilizations. How can we trust you with such capabilities?" Kim Dae-ho nodded respectfully. "General, that is exactly the right question. The answer is simple. You have no choice but to trust us, because we already have these capabilities, whether you trust us or not." He gestured to the display showing the remnants of the galactic fleet. "We could have destroyed every ship in your armada without losing a single human life. We could have turned your home worlds into lifeless rocks. We could have erased your species from existence and taken everything you possess." The chamber was so quiet that the environmental system seemed loud. "But we did not," Kim Dae-ho continued. "Even when you came to our home with overwhelming force and demanded our surrender, we chose restraint. We disabled your fleet instead of destroying it. We demonstrated our power instead of using it for conquest. Captain Lee Hana's voice joined. The communication from her ship, the Indomitable. The first joint human-alien patrol fleet is already being organized. Species that choose to work with us will find that we are reliable allies and fair partners. The display changed to show new ship designs. Human vessels working alongside alien craft. Their different technologies combining to create something more powerful than either could achieve alone. We are not interested in ruling the galaxy, Captain Lee continued. We are interested in exploring it, learning from it, and helping it grow. But we will not allow any species to threaten that growth through aggression or exploitation. A new voice spoke from the back of the chamber. It was the ambassador from the Zephyrian Republic, a small species that had been fighting a losing war against the aggressive Korthak Empire for decades. If humanity truly offers protection to those who need it, the Zephyrian said, then my people formally request to join this Terran peacekeeping initiative. Before Kim Dae-ho could respond, other voices joined in. The Solani Confederation, the Free Colonies of Altair, the Democratic Union of Centauri. One by one, smaller species began requesting human protection from their more powerful neighbors. Zix then finally spoke, his voice barely audible through his translation device. And what of those species who refuse this new arrangement? What happens to those who choose to maintain their independence? Kim Dae-ho looked directly at the Velthari leader. Nothing happens to them, counselor. Species that leave others alone will be left alone in return. Species that threaten our allies will face consequences. The choice is entirely yours. The implications were clear. The galaxy's power structure had just been turned upside down. The strong could no longer simply take what they wanted from the weak. Military aggression would now face human retaliation. The age of conquest through superior firepower was over. Dr. Shin, the Jin's voice, came through the communication system one final time. The demonstration has shown you our defensive capabilities. What we have not shown you are our constructive technologies. Species that work with us will gain access to advances in medicine, agriculture, manufacturing, and space travel that will improve the lives of every citizen. The display showed images of human technology being adapted for alien use, medical devices that could extend lifespans by centuries, agricultural systems that could turn barren worlds into gardens, manufacturing processes that could create abundance from common materials. We offer partnership, not domination, Dr. Shin continued. We offer protection, not conquest. We offer growth, not exploitation. Kim Dae-ho looked around the chamber one final time. Many of the alien delegates looked terrified. Others appeared thoughtful, and some seemed relieved. The galaxy was about to change in ways that none of them could fully understand yet. The Galactic Senate is welcome to continue its administrative functions, Kim Dae-ho announced. Trade regulations, territorial disputes, diplomatic protocols. These things can still be handled through traditional channels. He paused, letting his next words carry the full weight of human military power. However, military actions will now fall under human oversight. Any species that chooses to wage war must first explain their reasons to Earth. Any species that threatens civilian populations will face immediate intervention. Any species that attempts to conquer others will discover why that is no longer possible. The transformation began immediately. Within hours of the demonstration, over 50 species had requested protection under the Terran Peacekeeping Initiative. The Velthari, humbled by their defeat, formally apologized for their aggression and requested human mediation in their territorial disputes. The Morthak, impressed by human tactical abilities, proposed joint military exercises and technology sharing agreements. 6 months later, Admiral Kim Dae-ho stood in the same chamber, but now it was called the Terran Senate Chamber. The walls displayed the flags of over 200 species, most of them now allied with or protected by humanity. Captain Lee Hanna, promoted to admiral, commanded a fleet that included ships from dozens of worlds, their crews working together. As equals, the galaxy had learned a lesson that would never be forgotten. Humanity had spent centuries developing the tools of war while hoping never to use them. When forced to reveal their capabilities, they had chosen education over extermination, partnership over domination, the species that had tried to disarm. Humanity now served alongside them, protecting the weak and ensuring that no world would ever again face the choice between slavery and destruction. The galaxy was more peaceful, more prosperous, and more united than it had ever been. And at the center of it all stood humanity, the species that had turned warfare into an art form, then chose to hang up their brushes and pick up tools of construction. Instead, the universe was a safer place because Earth had refused to be defenseless.